Hello, this is Alan Wheeler, and I apologize if you're watching this before I'm able to, or before the processing is done. I'm going to try to cut off the short delay that comes at the beginning here. We're on my YouTube channel where I've been talking about spirituality and the tarot, shifting to a playlist I'm going to call Morrigan Moments, as I'm here at my altar, and you can see a fairly recent acquisition here of a statue of the Morrigan with sword drawn and crow in hand here. And I've taken just a few minutes to light a candle and incense and create some sacred space, which I hope you can share here today. So, a few videos back, I did a longish one called My Calling by the Morrigan. And after making that, I felt some uncertainty, just about how personal it was, whether it's kosher, so to speak, to share about deity in that way. And I tried giving my disclaimer that although I'm talking and referring to personified deity, if you're a Christian, that could be accepted as aspects or faces of the Holy Spirit. If you're Buddhists, those emanations of the Om, the transcendent Brahman. If you're atheist, aspects of personality or self or higher self, and so on. But I still felt a little uncertain. And I used a pendulum, which I believe at bare minimum bypasses the kind of chattering monkey brain and the logical reasoning, and perhaps taps into intuition or what we know deeply, whatever you consider that source ultimately to be. And so, using the pendulum in this fashion, I asked, was the video I made just mostly for me? And it began swinging in the forward and backward motion that indicates to me yes. And then I asked, reset, and asked, was it also for others? And it began swinging in the circular fashion, which signifies for me, perhaps, maybe. And not being satisfied, I drew one rune and 3 cards from Tarot of the Vampires here. And this is the reflection. It's probably going to lead into, I'm trying to keep these a little shorter now, so it will probably lead into some clarification in yet another video. What I'll do, I'll put the video I'm referring to that told about my calling. I'll enter that as maybe the 3rd one in this playlist, and then pick up in number 4 with this little story I'm starting today. So the rune that I drew was this one, Gabo. It looks like an X, and it means gift. It can mean generosity. It can sometimes mean exchange, or exchange of gifts, or a covenant. So this was very appropriate as the video was all about kind of my initiation process into working with the Morrigan. So far, so good. The next card I drew, well, I'll show you all three. I drew the Devil from Tarot of Vampires again, the Queen of Knives, which is the Queen of Swords in other decks, and the Seven of Scepters, which is the Seven of Wands in other decks. And after sitting with the cards, this was my reflection. First of all, the Devil card, especially in this deck, seems to display that primal creativity, that almost animalistic impulse. And I took this to mean the kind of the primal trance state that has typified my journey with the Morrigan so far. Sometimes these are triggered by images or practices that might seem like the more left-hand path or alternative paths. And I know there's different thinkings on what that means exactly. I think I'm with Kelly Ann Maddox in that she does see that at some cosmic level or philosophical level, there is a good and evil. There is a morality. And so when we're thinking to murder or not to murder, there is a certain realm where there is black and white, but that she also agrees that usually in practice, in people, in ethics, and in day-to-day life, there's more gray areas, and we deal with shadows and light. And so, whereas in kind of a medieval symbolism, the Devil card would represent that cosmic evil, that monstrous, toxic, bad, completely dark energy. It can't. Many people read it, of course, as that shadow and that primal state that does have benefits and a kind of a light side to the force there. So I think I'm with her on that. In her way of thinking, that's helpful to me. And the second card was just very obviously for me the representing the Morrigan herself, a very beautiful feminine form. And I just recently read some of the old lore, and there were just paragraphs of describing the sensual beauty of the great queen, and unapologetically so. And also the knife or sword shows that she is strategic. She knows the big picture. Interestingly, as I was laying out the cards, inadvertently, this one covered the Queen of Knives. And it just spoke to me in the moment that it's as if these triggers or trance states, these kind of practices, she's coming through those. And that these things can present gates or doors of access to the personified deity. At the risk of making this video a little bit too long, I will go ahead and tell a trance journey or trance vision that I had. I'll abbreviate it and maybe go into more detail another time. But in the trance state, I had a vision of being led through a field into deep woods where there was a tree with a pentagram. And this was more or less the path working form. And here's a pentagram here and a pentagram on the ring dedicated to the Morrigan. And in this vision, carved on a blackthorn tree in the center of a clearing, was the pentagram. And after a kind of initiation rite and crossing a bridge and following a path into thicker, darker woods, I came upon steps leading down into the underworld. And as she led me down the steps, deeper and deeper, her physical form began to fade as this underground chamber became clear, as if in transformation, so that her hair became like the ivy and roots growing from the roof, and her body seemed to become the smooth stones of a basin of warm water, which was like her spirit. And at the 8 points around the chamber, which would mark the wheel of the year, there were, each point had a sword and torch and a grail full of wine. And at the top of the dome was a pentagram. But without elaborating further of the experience, the physical form seemed to fade and change. So the Seven of Scepters was the final card, and this spoke to me of the expressing all of this as I tried to do on that video, all of this inner experience, trying to express that, and in a way building not a physical altar, but marking an altar of experience of this milestone in my life, of my expanded spirituality, speaking it out like this shape-shifting panther figure, screaming with that fire energy and expressing that fiery passion here. And kind of a declaration of that expanded path. So in the next video, I'll stop here, but in the next video, I'll talk about how I felt scolded for kind of continuing to hide in the closet some things, and how I continue to work through this idea of how to express what's within and bring it out into expression. As within, so without, may be a good title for this video. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I hope you feel connection with people in your life, with online community, and on your spiritual path, whatever that may be. Thank you very much.